Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Deep Thoughts. Today is going to be a redo of an episode I actually had audio difficulties with, which was a huge bummer. But I'm also going to mix two concepts together. This video will most likely appeal. You can see some of that fog over there. Look at that. I don't know if it's going to show up in the filter. By the way, I'm smoking a stick that I don't know if I'm going to like. We'll see here. This episode is going to be combining two subjects. We've talked about, reality several times, especially when it comes to whether or not there is any God at all, a God, or a matrix, and whether or not in any one of those forms there might be a sub-agency of individuals that take care of our universe. Meaning, for those of you who believe in aliens, who might have terraformed this planet, dropped off a few species, raped a place of gold on the surface, anything precious on the surface, then they take off and they just leave us slaves here. Maybe some of us are engineers, maybe some of us are more suitable to be, craftsmen. Maybe some are just meant to be breeders, whatever. This one's going to focus on the Matrix because it's been plaguing my mind for at least a month. I'm trying to think of exactly what's kicking this stuff off in my brain. Part of it has to do with the age-old question of, if there is a God, then how can there be so much suffering? If there is a God, how can any documented definition of evil be so prevalent on our planet? And the control structure of our planet is most definitely, unfortunately, in I guess most of the world. The second half of this episode will be based on perhaps, and this is the episode I lost. I think it'll be better to crunch it into 30 to 40 minutes as opposed to an hour and a half by itself. But if we do have programmers and narrative writers, similar to Westworld, the HBO series, in case you missed it, and we'll cover that's a tongue twister. We will cover Westworld just a little bit, but just my synopsis of that show, if you're interested and you haven't seen it, would be Season 1 is an utter masterpiece. Season 2 is sort of a masterpiece on a different level for a different reason. Season 2 is a masterpiece for the same reason that Back to the Future 2 was a masterpiece. Your brain doesn't have natural archetypes of entertainment that you're used to from the first movie, but when you really know writing and you really know stories and you realize that you have to watch the movie several times to get it, it becomes very rewarding. Season 3 was also interesting, but hastily ended. I'm not sure why. So now imagine this. Imagine that in this idea that I'm throwing at you, every single time you thought you were praying to God, you were praying to perhaps a council of programmers that are either assigned to you specifically, which sort of seems impossible because of the count, but who knows? Or you're at least reporting into an area that covers like a municipality. They're covering the needs of a particular area so far. Fewer people, but they work 24/7, and time isn't a big issue for them. Time is an issue for us. And they are either creating an entertainment experience for us, a maturation experience for us, meaning maturing our souls on an individual basis, perhaps. Or this is some sort of Truman Show. It could be that we have our face in some sort of machine on that end. And this is nothing more than a prolonged vacation experience. I've said a long time ago that there's something very special with the eyes of a human being. I can't say I've done a lot of experiments with animals, Now, one might chalk it up to a predatorial thing, which is why eyes are special, because eyes are definitely your capability of discerning friend or foe and responding properly. But I do this experiment, and it blows people's minds. And if you want to blow people's minds with a really simple experiment, the OG listeners who've listened to all 500 plus episodes know this. What you do is you get someone that you're very connected to, preferably a family member, or even just an associate or friend who thinks that you're pretty groovy and you think they're pretty groovy. The reason for the connection is that this experiment helps you lose the connection in a split second, and your mind's going to blow and their mind's going to blow, the more sentient you are as a human being. Well, what you do, and I got a teaching job at a college doing this one, because I was standing at a party with another professor, and I showed her this experiment, and immediately she was just like, "Oh, what are you doing? Do you teach?" And it was just pal. And then her and I made really good friends outside of the school as well. Here's how it works. You stand face to face with someone, and you explain to them that, the eyes are the window to the soul. It's just this little catchphrase. It's a romantic thing you say, blah, blah, blah. Well, here's the thing. You typically lock eyes to prove that has some significance, and you'll feel it if you're in love. But when you remove the connection with just the eyes, an amazing bundle of emotions and connection disappears. The godliness of our being tends to disappear. And how do you do it? You take your index finger. When you're facing them, you say, you're feeling this, right? You make sure they feel this. Yep. And hopefully there's someone who's kind of glowing towards you. I had just met this woman, but we were hitting it off. She's married and 20 years older than me. But, we just really respected each other's minds. I said, watch this. And I put my finger up and blocked our eyes with my index finger. If you're watching on the video, you can see it. If you're a podcast, I'm just lifting my fingers to cover my eyes like a bar in one of those old movies where they would, instead of shrouding your face, they'd block it with a black bar. As soon as you do this, you lose connection with that other person on a profound level, especially if you had one before. So you want to give yourself about 60 seconds of feeling the vibe. And you can pull a trick on them. The magic trick is that you establish a good connection with them in a conversation prior to pulling the experiment on them. Thus, they don't understand that you've actually removed something, but you were building it up while you were talking to them. What that means to me is that there's something very, very special about the eyes. And I mean really paranormal, supernatural. And what if, on the other side of this matrix, our eyes are the only thing that really continues with us, that our bodies and our face and all this stuff is just a temporary construct. But somehow, when the soul connects to the body in the womb, the eyes that you get are the eyes that you have. Now, I know that there's a bunch of dominant blue and brown eye thing, but there's something there. It begs the question. Why is there such a connection with the eyes? Perhaps the eye color themselves is no big deal, but the actual portal for my real soul, my real being, is only going to truly and purely connect with yours when I look at you. At least for that particular emotion. Obviously, when you press your chest towards someone else that you love and you're in a good embrace, whether it be your kid or your spouse or a relative or a buddy you're saying goodbye to, your bestie, you feel that too. But the second half is going to be about potential indicators in your life that come from the other side that are giving you clues about whether you should do something, shouldn't do something, both positive and negative. And I'll give you an example. For those of you who have dived off at some point, and for a while, you were convinced that every single hand gesture that someone made in a YouTube video was an Illuminati thing. Every number mentioned, the way things were put together in movies. Stanley Kubrick gets accused of a lot of this stuff. I want you to turn that around for 1 second and point that at your own life. What if there are a bunch of these little tchotchkes in your life, and they're set up by the programmers to give you the indicators of this is a really good idea and this isn't such a good idea? I'm going to give you a bad example. I'm going to give quite a few bad examples, probably. But let's say you had a choice of going to place A or place B. You're at home, and it's 6 o'clock, the evening, it's a Friday. And so the idea is, hey, how am I going to spend my evening? Well, one of them, maybe it's a bar where you might get drunk, might do something stupid. The other one is a friend's house where maybe you have a drink, but you're going to be around some friends, people you know. For whatever reason, the bar is the first kind of instinct that you want to go to. But as you attempt to get to the bar, there's little obstacles that aren't usually there. Maybe there's some construction you're going to have to go around to get to the bar. It's like the writer wrote a gap in your script. Well, you were just going to drive down the normal street you were going to go, but now you got to go around stuff. Maybe the neighbor that you would normally go to is next door, but the bar's down the street and your car's having issues and you can't find your car keys and they're making you search for it. They're making you think about it by inserting more obstacles so you think to yourself, you know what, the neighbor's probably the best place to go. You can have a drink over there. You'll be safe. You can get plastered and you can walk home. If you go to that bar, you're going to drink too much, hop in your car too soon, and get a DUI and destroy your life. But let's go back to the programmers. We think we pray directly to God. And I'm not saying you don't, no matter what I'm saying here, because I'm experimenting. I'm not telling you this is a new belief I have, right? You got to experiment with thought. It's part of thinking, and it's a lot of fun. It's sort of like writing a comic book with the pieces and parts that you understand about reality. How could you write a comic book that has one thing in it that you can't conceive of? You can't. You might conceive of new things as a result of writing the previous part of the story that you never conceived of before, but that moment you can conceive of it. But what if the people that are really listening to us is this layer way before God? The one thing that really appealed to me about Westworld was, one, if you see the Yul Brynner movie back in, 70... It's like 73 or 4 or something that's back there. It's a Michael Crichton book. It is just a remnant of what Westworld did. Now, I never read the Michael Crichton book, so maybe he put a lot more of the detail in and it was dumbed down, and then maybe the TV series is more adhering to the book. Don't know. But how was the Westworld world worked out? Well, the thing that they put in that's probably not the case, but may be, is there are hosts, and there are guests. And the guests are truly human, and the hosts are all robots. Now, I don't think we have to be too literal about this and suggest that we're robots, but boy, it sure looks like it, don't it? But what if the guests are these scumbags that run the world who are just doing what they do? Maybe the guests are us. And all those NPCs that act evil. We simply choose the program that we want, like Arnold Schwarzenegger going into Total Recall, the movie. And we are we are selecting this area of history, this area of obstacles. And, a lot of us think we're in a really weird, nasty situation. But the way that they're going to turn this story is like a Rocky fight. You're gonna think you're losing. Rocky's losing. He's in the middle of the fight. Mr. T is tearing him a new one. Or Apollo Creed or Dolph Lundgren. But right when you think he's gonna lose, Stallone falls down in the corner. The camera goes tight on his face, and somebody says something to him. Do it for Burgess Meredith. And he gets up, and he just destroys the other guy. He gets a second wind. Then all of a sudden, a bunch of good stuff happens. He wins. It's great. He's beat up. Maybe 2021 is going to be that rebound instead of this other thing. In Westworld, you have a genius who created the whole place, Ford, played by Anthony Hopkins. In my book, he's sort of God, the engineer of the beings themselves, the original narrator, of all things. And he's the guy that understands narration and the human condition and how deep it goes better than anyone else. He's also put a bunch of fail-safes in and has godlike abilities when he wants them, which I can't remember. It was dramatized in the first season. But there is this guy off on the side who's kind of being groomed to be his replacement. He's not as good as Anthony, but he's trying. He's a little bored of the world because, he can't introduce narratives as quick as he'd like. There are limitations. But if you've ever run your own business before, or you've ever become a senior employee at a business, you'll start to see the world a little bit differently because you start to see compartments of functionality. Like I mentioned in a previous episode, you're going to have, someone who keeps all the bills paid to keep the electricity on, the internet on, the healthcare running. Then you're going to have a whole new group of people that design and create whatever product or service you're doing. Then you have a sales staff that goes out and sells it. Then you have the workers that implement it. Then you have your senior execs that raise money, shake big hands to get big deals going. Where your life is actually compartmentalized that, whether or not you realize that or not. I bet most of you do. When stretched out over time, and you really think it through, your life's compartments and needs, if you were to just create teams that would help you live your life, you've got the needs from 1 through 10, 11 through 20, 21 through 30. I mean, there's different things that you want at different times. Then the question would arrive fairly quickly, which is that do you have as much control of your life as you think you do? What I'm going to suggest is you do, but that the indicators around you that draw you towards things, that give you opportunities, that might tap into some of the software operating system that you're running, your mind software. Maybe it can get upgraded. Maybe that's why everything sleeps, as I've suggested a long time ago. You go to sleep and your software gets tinkered with. There was a Twilight Zone where a gentleman, it's where Groundhog Day comes from. He wakes up every single day in court getting sentenced to death, getting sentenced to be killed in the electric chair that evening, which doesn't happen in the real world, even in that world back in the 60s. And the guy's like, he's just sitting there with his hand, his head in his hand going, oh my God, I'm back again. Except the big difference in the Twilight Zone, which was, I think, much more profound and should have been in the movie because it would have made it funnier, was that in the Twilight Zone, when this dude woke up with the same day, everyone switched places. So the judge might be the guard might be the judge. His attorney might have been an inmate on death row. Doesn't have a girlfriend, but all the women could change too. It might be funny to have Bill Murray, be in love with the woman he came with in the movie, and then, it keeps rotating. And so at one point, the woman that comes with him is absolutely disgusting to him, and the woman he's in love with now runs the coffee shop. Then she runs the ice cream parlor. Then she's this, then she's that. And he has to wait till she circulates around before he can actually drop the bomb on her and try to get her to love him. The movie Dark City, where at night everybody fell asleep and these beings would come out and swap everybody's place. They took a little bit from Twilight Zone. Brilliant. But they were tuning the city. They were tuning the city by changing people's places, which is sort of a manual way of moving around the components inside of a computer, thus reprogramming the city to go a different direction when everything went, turned back on in the morning. What if the Matrix doesn't have anything to do with us being batteries on the outside or any of that kind of stuff? It could be a form of entertainment for those of us, which is you, who live forever. It's just something we do. Hell, maybe the soul isn't even the next form up. Maybe the reason why when everybody dies and they float up, which makes no sense, right? I mean, space, where there's an up and a down thing, even if you believe in flat earth, just having heaven be up and hell be down, okay, I guess, whatever. I don't have anything against that idea. But if you were in software, and if you've ever seen the opening sequence of entering the computer in the movie Tron in 1982, which some young special effects kids redid in Blender, this light cycle sequence, when they saw the character Flynn go inside the computer, like all of them said, oh my God, that's so much better than Legacy. This was so cool, and it's pretty timeless the way they did it. Well, if you're in software floating up, big deal. It's just an effect. It's just something that someone programmed. What happens in World of Warcraft when you die? You die and you become a ghost of yourself, and you resurrect at the nearest graveyard. There's an angel there that will allow you to resurrect right then and there, but you're going to take a penalty for something like 10 minutes where you're going to be really weak. And usually you only do that and you take a big bunch of damage on your armor, and you got to heal up, you got to teleport out and see if you're going to quit for the night. But you don't want to be dead when you wake up. Could be something like that. Why do people get sent back from near-death experiences? There are thousands of them, if not tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of them we haven't heard. People who die, float up, get told to come back down. Why would that be? I mean, we know the classic phrase, it's not your time. Okay. But the universe, in that particular scenario, seems like it's got a glitch, doesn't it? Oh, you weren't supposed to die. Oops. Sorry. No, go back down. We'll take care. You'll be all right. The thing I haven't heard, and maybe you have, is someone going up, being told to come back down, and then being utterly maimed, quadriplegic, can't walk, can barely talk, got to talk on a computer. I haven't heard that one. We all wake up and we're wondering why we're here. And let me give you a contrasting kind of situation to make more sense out of that question. Why are we here? Why are we here? And, you can worship God all you want. You can believe in any savior that you want. It never answers the question. This answer that God is a narcissist that needs a bunch of beings to worship him, I can't buy that for 2 seconds. Again, if you have children, the last thing you want them to do is to follow you around like Life of Brian. The reason why the movie Life of Brian was made was to expose the ridiculous notion that there's narcissism in God. You want your children to go out and live a life of their own. Yeah, you want to see them all the time and talk to them all the time, for sure. But I it's nice to hear my daughter say, hey, she said to me the other day, she said, I really want to thank you for raising me in science, because without that background, I wouldn't be what I am today. And I was like, wow, that's awesome. And, I was like, hey, you were an awesome student. And then she was like, I'm serious. And I'm like, I'm serious too, It was a funny little exchange, but I would not need that more than a few times in my lifetime to completely believe her and think of that when I think of her, that she appreciated what I did for her. Just being a dad, So that's cool. But I definitely would not want her to show up at my doorstep every Sunday and pray to me and da-da-da-da. It just would be weird. And I'm not even a God. So to impose that narcissism on God is to take God from being this amazingly powerful, brilliant being and turn him into a child, in my opinion. So entertainment is one of the possible strategies of this world. Okay, makes sense to me. Something to take up the time. But that doesn't get to the purpose of why we're here. Well, if you're in a more celestial place, maybe there's more purpose. If there were no evil, maybe evil is just a simulation within this simulation. It gives you a polarity to make a choice, to figure out what you're made out of. But if we came down to earth and we were simply in a wonderful place, which I'm ready for that any day now, I guess creativity might be your purpose, to create something very interesting. I don't know if everyone in the world was a musician, how many centuries we would have before we had written every song, every story, make every sculpture. Maybe it's infinite. Maybe we would have to evolve as beings in order to get to the next stage of what we would think is interesting. If any of you have tried to play modern music to an older group of people, then you almost certainly have seen their face reel from how disgusting they think the modern music is. And you could be bringing them the cream of the crop music from any category of anything. I played some techno music once for some folks in their 50s and 60s, and it was, I think it was, it was Fatboy Slim. And I was playing them Acid 8000 or Acid 9000? Because at the time it was inspiring a script for me. And I got done and I said, well, what did you think about that music? I know you don't like it, but what do you think about that? And this one dude goes, honestly, I don't hear any music at all. I just hear a bunch of gibberish. His mind likes the more classic stuff, the Frank Sinatra stuff, the Glenn Miller kind of stuff. Okay. It was an interesting experiment. So if you think about man evolving to create more in these infinite options that we have to be recognized as design, as entertainment, as something, we might have to pace ourselves before we exhaust ourselves of everything we could possibly do together. Or to find the loops that we actually appreciate, and we could do them over and over again. There's this interesting principle of the mind when you take a drug. The more you take it, the more the mind cancels out the effect of the drug. Not the damage of the drug, but the effect of the drug. Alcoholics can drink, if they drink all the time, they get to a point where they drink and they don't feel much of the intoxication effects. They are intoxicated, but they don't feel as much as they used to. It's still rotting their liver, it's still rotting their brain, it's shrinking their arteries, and they're putting themselves at great risk of dying early. I've made episodes on patterns, the pattern of, the way man interprets patterns. We explored the world because our pattern of where we were got old. You're in the desert. Well, sand gets old pretty quick. You get onto a coast, you find some water. Oh, that's pretty good for a while. Maybe even for a generation. And the kids who grow up in that generation of water and sand, they keep walking down the coast until they find a tree, a forest, an iceberg. So the principle of the matrix for me is a bit like a video game, meaning it could have an entertainment aspect to it. In video games, you do what? You level your characters. Well, it could be that we're leveling our minds if we apply ourselves. Leveling, if nothing else, is the age bracket that you're in, because your vessel's going to deteriorate over time. And if you stay alive in that vessel, well, you're going to experience a bunch of things that are limiting as you get older. While your mind is hopefully increasing in its performance, your body may or may not be as intense as it was 10 years ago, depending on your regimen. But now, just let me throw you out this basic principle that goes with this idea. What if you're praying to God? That's the noun that you use in your mind. It's the noun you use when you speak out loud. But the entire time you've been doing this, the individuals, let's just say, who monitor what you're saying, they kind of giggle to themselves because they're like, wow, that's me. I'm this person's God today as I go through the tech support log of requests, of prayers, of problems, and I decide whether or not, based on some rule book, I can help them or not. And then it would kick over to the other part of this episode, which are the indicators that might be sent down to you to give you a chance to fall into the other adventure. Would it be awesome if Choose Your Own Adventure was like a heads-up display in your eyeballs? You're about to go do something, and you look over there, and it's like, go to jail or fall in love. Which one do I want to do? Hey, I think I want to go over here. But maybe you're a bad boy one day, and you want to go figure out what it's like to spend a night in a tank, to get your license suspended for a year, to pay 15 to 20 grand in DUI courses. Maybe that's just something you want to do because you've fallen in love 1,000 times. But we don't have those as far as I know. We don't have a Terminator brain where we're looking at our eyeballs and it's assessing everything. Give me your clothes. All right. But now what if this is true? We actually are in a matrix. The stars are there to lure us Maybe the stars were just put up there as a design, just to kind of entertain us at night. But maybe the stars are a bit like the monolith in 2001, where it goes from Earth to the moon and baits us basically to find it up there. And then the second we find it, it makes this horrible noise, and then it goes and orbits Jupiter, which is why then we have to figure out how to make a ship called the Jupiter to get to the monolith to get the next upgrade. What if you prayed directly to the programmers? You acknowledge them for the first time in their existence, and you pray to them. But you pray to them similar to what you might suspect their business to be like. In Westworld, what did you have? You had a crew that would go pick up the bodies and bring them inside the plateau where they've got the kind of headquarters. Then another group would heal them up, pull bullets out of them, heal up the skin, fix anything that's really super wrong for after they hosed their bodies down. And the hosing down scenes in Westworld were so kooky and funny because it was like you're not doing much, you're just moving blood around, right? But you re-embalm them with their fluids, you get them turned back on, and then they get placed the next day back in the brothel or the barn or wherever. But they had QA, they had, I think, a behavioral group, then they had narration, then they had the OS people. Bernard was an OS person who worked for Ford. And it was interesting because each one of the hosts went through very visibly in the series through all those different compartments. And the only group that didn't have an intimate interaction with the hosts was the crew that picked them up and hosed them down. But the group that mended them, well, they were drawn in. The Asian guy and like the white guy, they got sucked into the situation. And then everyone else was super intimately involved, looking at the software updates, trying to figure out what was going wrong, observing the reveries, the little vignettes that they created with their experience. So they would do things that they weren't programmed to do, giving them a little bit of autonomy. We have a tremendous amount of autonomy. We don't question whether or not we are really human because we have defined humanity as exactly what we are. And so we're not defining ourselves outside of what we are. We're here, which is cool. The hosts had to find out that they're living in sort of a facsimile of reality and that Dolores had been killed, tens of thousands of times and resurrected as the daughter of that farmer guy. So at least we're not in a loop like that I'm aware of. But now what if you're going to create this real long-term experience or experiment? And maybe we're all volunteers, like astronauts. But instead of a deprivation facility where we're not going to see, the outside world for 2 years and we're going to live without sunlight, or at least natural sunlight. We're in this thing for what feels like a full lifetime, however that is. Well, you might say, okay, we're on the outside and we're designing this with everybody else. Perhaps we're all very gifted people. I think I just figured out the name of the episode. We're going to call this Matrix Gods. The Matrix Gods or something like that. But we want to break. We want to break from the daily churn. And so we insert this thing that occurs called sleeping. Can you imagine that the determination of whether or not you're real or a fake is you don't dream or you do dream? And when you do dream, it's because you're going back to the more celestial world and you're taking a break. Maybe it's a subroutine that is simply run to give us sort of a non-identifying experience, meaning if we dreamed and we popped out of the Matrix and we saw the laboratories and all the programmers and all that stuff, then we would be injuring this experience by polluting it back with the reality that this is a Matrix and we did figure it out. And so they give us sort of a playground, a green room that is much more malleable. You're sort of a little god in your dreams, whether or not you get your way or not. You can, some people told me they've died in their dreams and they wake up. I guess. I don't think I've ever died in a dream, and I dream epic novels every single night. So I don't know, maybe it's just my attitude's a little more positive. But even when I've been in situations where, I hated my job and what have you, and I think I told you guys a long time ago, there was a point in my life, just before it got awesome, by the way, where I was in a job that was initially fantastic, but they kept changing the company and hiring these dopehead people that were creating a lot of problems for programmers, selling things that don't exist, okay, and then saying, I told them you'd haven't done it in 2 weeks. I mean, things that don't exist on the internet. My methodology of relaxing to go to bed at night was dreaming of jumping off the World Trade Centers, of which I'd never been to. I'd never seen them in real life. And I really didn't know they were called the World Trade Centers. I just know it was 2 big square buildings. And I would just dream of jumping off of them. And it wasn't a suicidal thing at all. It was a big F you can't control me, because I was representing the top of the building in my mind, metaphorically. This is conscious. This isn't dreaming. As being the locked-in area that I am stuck in, which is the job. And so I just jump off and jump off and jump off. And then finally I'd feel like I'd kind of divorce myself in that situation, and then I would sleep fine. I've never had that since, and that lasted for a couple of months, probably 6 months, easy. The very next thing that happened to me was I got the job at Electronic Arts full-time instead of being a contractor for 6 years. I immediately got a crew underneath me, and it was just like a rocket of amazing stuff that happened. And that lasted for a good, probably decade and some change, But again, it could also be that you need to leave this body because it's going to get upgraded. Maybe not dreaming has nothing to do with being fake or real, because I know a lot of you are probably like, hey man, I don't dream, I'm not fake. Don't take anything I'm saying seriously. It's all just postulation, freestyle, man. Maybe it's that your software doesn't need any upgrading. Whatever you're doing is spot on. And maybe I'm all screwed up, which is why I keep dreaming these novels, because my software programmers are like, what's up with this guy? Oh my God. Maybe you've just pushed yourself to the point you've used up all the routines that you've been given, and now it's time to put some more plays in the playbook. Maybe that's all it is. Either way, if you got it right and you're not needing any changes, hey, you're probably living a pretty good life. You tell me. Douglas Adams, who wrote The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, he wrote it live at the BBC for, I guess, about 3 years, which ended up being 2 books. The books, again, like I always say, I don't recommend them. I recommend listening to the original broadcast from the BBC. But he wrote 2 more books after that because the demand was so high and he was enjoying himself. And so in 2000, or somewhere in there, Dirk Maggs, who's an acquaintance of mine, he pulled it all together and did the other 2 books, and they did a brilliant job. Brilliant job. In that second half, he has this bistro mathematics that runs the ship's engines. I think I got that right. And it was the father in Harry Potter that was one of the characters in this sequence. But everybody had to go to dinner at a bistro. And you find out that the dinner is a pre-programmed set of instructions that you must follow. You must follow the lead of the maitre d', follow the lead of your waiter to get everything correct to execute the hyperspace jump in the spaceship. So you had to live out this life to get something else to occur. It was so brilliant. I remember when I first listened to it, I was a little sort of uneasy listening to it because it was like, really? That is the biggest, weirdest stretch of any sci-fi fictional comedy writer I've ever heard in my life. And the more I thought about it and couldn't shake it out of my mind, I thought, Douglas, God bless you up there in heaven. You were so ahead of the curve of human consciousness, it blows me away on a narrative level. Hopefully he's our narrator. I would hire that guy in 2 seconds. Write my life, would you? Watch the Vogon show up to blow up Earth. Hey, as long as I know Ford Prefect, I'm all good. By the way, if you hear any weird little ticking in the background, they're building a couple new overpasses nearby. So I think they're jackhammering some stuff out of the way. It's so funny. When I used the mic on the camera, I didn't have to make any disclosures or disclaimers about the soundtrack. And now, since I have the mic all hooked up beautifully through the computer, it's picking up everything. But I do try to cancel out ambient noise. So now, what if you were to talk to these programmers in a business unit methodology? For those of you who aren't familiar with that, let me just say this. Let's say on any one particular day, you need an opportunity that you've been working on for quite a while to see fruition. For me, it would be, I've got 3 films into my agent. Hollywood's on hold. One of them's getting heavily processed and examined. I want that to sell. So it's like, hey, team 1, go off and get that script sold. Team 2, I want you to help me pick the next script I'm going to write because I'm working on a few at the same time. If one is richer and better and more timely in a way that I don't know because I don't have the whole bird's eye view of the Matrix, then let's have the ideas for the ones that aren't so good or the ones that aren't timely stall, and then the one that's supposed to really hit, throw it at me like crazy. The last script I wrote was something I've been thinking about for probably 10 years, and I wrote it in 3 months. So it seemed right at the time, and then all this crap hit. The other one might be, let's just keep it simple. Let's say you're single and you need to meet somebody, or you know a few people and you're not quite sure, should I be dating that person? Or should I even approach that person? And so whatever indicators you need to see to pick the right person, that business unit up there would handle that particular objective, team 3. Team 4 might simply be the one that owns you, the one that takes care of your operating system. And again, these aren't people that are marionetting you like a puppet. They're there to give you generally what you want because you're on an experience. Again, just use up the Total Recall movie that Schwarzenegger did originally. He bought an experience to be a double agent, deep undercover, and basically the story that he ended up experiencing after he bought the plan was exactly the one that he lived. So he bought the plan, he lived it, but they threw in a couple zingers at the beginning because he reacts really badly when they try to implant him with the vacation. And the dude who comes in, he's really rude to this woman. He calls her a name. I think he calls her the B word. And she says, well, I haven't even implanted the thing yet, so go F yourself, But the nerd kid who was setting up the whole simulation looks at the program and goes, oh, blue sky on Mars. I haven't seen this one before. And he puts it in. Well, the finale is a blue sky on Mars. So the director and the writer did a beautiful job giving you enough suspicion that this is really happening, or it didn't happen. And part of the storyline is to throw you off by the woman saying he was never implanted in the first place. Even he's supposed to hear that to make it more authentic. But let's just say we're not in that situation. We are truly being gifted by what we can communicate to our programmers, but we have to be clear. How many of you have bought like a product? It's probably easier to say a software product, but a lot of you don't work on computers much more than to check your email or something. I mean, even a telephone. But you download an app and it's supposed to do something for you. You can't figure it out. So some of you will go get your refund. Some of you will eat the cost of the app because whatever. And the other will contact tech support for that app and go, look, you said this does this. I can't figure it out. I did everything you said in your manual. Help me out. And then tech support either responds or doesn't respond. But if they do, and like, oh, yeah, just click that checkbox there and you'll get exactly what you want. And you're like, oh, gosh, absolutely. Okay, sorry, my fault. But you get what you want in the end because you petitioned this change. You petitioned to get what you wanted. I've said to you just recently, and I've said it several times, that I speak out loud when I'm trying to talk to my creator because I feel like it's a lot more analog. It's a lot more cut and dry. Because I don't know about you, but when I drive all my thoughts into my mind, I can say a prayer in my mind and not mess up the words and mess up the intent. But isn't your mind a very dynamic, wild party inside? I mean, it really, you can control it if you force yourself to control it, but otherwise you're daydreaming. You're like, oh, look over there, look over here, We know that manifest destiny is real. Law of attraction. Those who think they're sick all the time and they figured out that they get a lot of attention from people by constantly reporting they're sick, well, guess what they get? They get sickness all the time. Those of you who say, I never get sick. I'm always healthy. You're always healthy and you never get sick. You get what you want. You're very positive with the universe, and so the universe is very positive back to you. If you're negative, you get negative stuff. You get what you put out. Well, what if that's if you don't talk to the matrix coders directly? You can use God if you want, or you can talk directly to them. If you believe this, I'm still evaluating the idea. But what if it's just this is who you are, and they're not there to change your mind? They're there to give you exactly what you put out. Oh, he's kind of a nervous Nell. Well, he must like being nervous. Well, give him more reasons to be nervous because he likes being nervous. Oh, that person, every time they meet their friends, they talk about the last surgery they got, the last horrible terminal illness they have that'll, kill them slowly over 30 years. I mean, just whatever it is. They're hypoglycemic one day. They're diabetic the other day. I got people like this in my family. They'll have completely diametrically opposed illnesses that swing back and forth. It's like, look, you can't be both things. You're going to be a paraplegic on Monday and a quadriplegic on Wednesday, and you're going to walk out of here on Friday. Like, give me a break. And you're going to go right back to it on Monday. Strange. So what if communicating to the universe is a way to get what you want because you're putting it out there? Many of you involved in design projects, or you have taken some sort of self-help course, whether you read a book, listened to a book, talked to someone professional, they might say that you should create a dream board. And this is where you physically print out or cut out of magazines the things that you want in your life. And you put them all over the place in your life. So as you brush your teeth, you're looking right at whatever you want. You're at your computer, you're in your car, wherever you are. It's the screensaver on your phone. It's the home page on your home, two different things. And so you're telling the universe, that's what I want. And so it gives it to you. It doesn't just, you don't just wake up with the Ferrari in your front driveway, but whatever might give you the financial stability to do such a thing starts to percolate up. And this is where we have to understand how the chain of events might occur. Let's say you wanted like a Lamborghini, a Huracan, one of the best cars ever made. Okay, well, probably not going to pull a miracle out of the universe to break the fabric of the way things work and just it comes into fruition right in front of your face. Hey man, if any of you pull that off, let me know. Make two and we'll just call it even. But what might start happening is a business opportunity for you to get into something, to invest. And I'm not saying the first thing you're going to put your money into is going to work, but you're going to start learning what you need to learn. And all that, pining for the object that you want. It works eventually and you get your car eventually. Whatever it is. You want to meet someone, but you don't have a lot of social skills. Well, like I've said several times, you got to get out and mingle. It is a bummer that the major pastime of first world countries is drinking. And if you don't drink, like me, I drink a little bit, but I don't like a beer here, a beer there. I'm not a big social person. I can't just sit in a bar all day and just pound drinks. I'd be puking and I'd have a headache in 2 hours. Yeah, you can call me pussy all you want, dude. You're always told, to, what is it? There's a new phrase that's going around. I think it's called crack the script I think it's called cracking the script, where your life is a script that you're writing yourself. But if you let it be automated, you won't get what you want, when you want it, how you want it. But if you crack the script, meaning you leap out of your life and you go up there to the typewriter that's writing your narrative, And you start to take the attitude that this is your world, not someone else's world. You're not even sharing it with me. It is your world. If anything, I'm a guest in your world. A lot of people are saying this in Los Angeles, and they're enjoying the results. Some of you, when I say, look, your life is a video game, and I don't mean that to be non-serious, but I do mean for you to recognize that it should be a positive experience no matter how crazy things get. Now, we can all imagine scenarios, and we know people that live in scenarios that don't feel like video games, trust me. But then again, you know that if you woke up in their bodies, the first thing you would do is leave probably where they live and go do something else to brighten up their life. One of the old analogies I brought up a long time ago was that, if I'm driving down the street and I see like a super obese person, and I just think, wow, what if, and I could put my body on hold and then go into their body, they go to sleep, and I get in their body and I stop eating crappy food and I start exercising, I start eating healthy food, I go to a doctor, see if I got any problems, and just straighten this person's life out, get them a 6-pack abs or whatever it is. And then they wake up in this totally perfect body, still themselves. Now they probably fatten it back up again, but maybe not. Maybe they look in there, maybe you leave them a little note. Hey, I took over your body for 1 year. Hope you like the results. Try not to screw things up. By the way, you like this, you don't like this, your heart's good, be careful with this, that, and the other thing, and they wake up and, you're gone. But maybe you can watch them and they don't even know because they're always a target or something. Some of you know that you play games with your mind to get what you want. Tony Robbins' whole thing is playing a game with your mind, but it's a game that works. I'm mentioning him a lot, in little vignettes and episodes because I want this to stick with you. It was the single greatest thing that happened to me, which is that if I'm in a bad situation in any category of my life, think of those teams, right? I have associated positivity with the wrong thing and negativity with the wrong thing. They need to be swapped. I don't like being fat, but I like eating, I'd love to be more fit, but working out's a bummer. Well, obviously, I need to think about what it's like to be really fit, and then not eat that crappy food, and exercise, and then poof, magic happens. I get better. Even if I don't reach a fitness magazine cover, I'm still feeling really good. People around me notice. Maybe if I need a partner, she notices. That's all that matters. If we're going to go into the mindset just for a split second of what maybe a programmer of our matrix might be relegated to do through assignment, as in responsibilities. Perhaps we're all good people and we agree that this is what we're supposed to do. It's like all those episodes. There's some movies that do it, but there's 2 episodes that are actually, there's 2 episodes in Twilight Zone that are complete repeat. And I mean complete repeat of each other. It's bizarre. One has Carol Burnett, and the other one has this kind of goofy, brilliantly played by this actor, a brunette guy. And they have guardian angels that are assigned to them. Both episodes are exactly the same. They're nerdy people who have a hard time maintaining work. They have a hard time paying rent. They're being hassled for their rent at the beginning of the episode, both of them. They have neighbors that love them. Kids especially love them. And so their life is like, in the norm, it's all messed up, but they love their life. But a guardian angel is sent down to take care of them. And so the guardian angel makes them rich, gives them cars, gives them clothing, gets them into the aristocratic kind of sycophant world of worshiping all that stuff. And they end up, convincing the guardian angel, look, I don't want any of this stuff. I don't want that car. I don't want that bank account. I don't want that job. And so the angel puts them back to the way they were at the end of the episode, and life goes on. Well, if there's any truth to a matrix programming staff watching our lives, then the whole thing is sort of a bunch of guardian angels that are going to unilaterally do the right thing for you. Now, there could be an element of tough love in that too. And so it could be, you can't be a baby forever. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, and we were talking about growing old and potentially dying by ourselves. And one has to really make that decision. Do you want to die by yourself? Some people do. They think other people are annoying. Okay. And others realize, yeah, well, right now I'm just going to be by myself, but, later on I'm going to find somebody. And once you approach 50, you better start thinking about it because, your options after 50 are less and less and less. People die off. People get set in their ways. People are married because they've already taken care of it. You could even meet someone who's married that's the perfect person for you, but because you're both respectful of humanity, you don't cheat and you don't hurt your loved one or whatever. Like you won't even hurt the other person's loved one because you're like, hey man, wouldn't want anyone to do that to me. And so I said, okay, because I was talking to her and she was telling me how much she loves the various elements of being alone. Loves to be in bed by herself because she has a really nice bed. Doesn't want to share it with anybody. Might be a permanent person to be that way. Doesn't mind being at home by herself. So she's comfortable in her own skin. No sin there. But she doesn't want to die alone. So I said, okay. I said, how awesome do you think it was to be a baby in your mother's womb? And she goes, I said, you think birthing was a fun experience? Here you are in a 98.8 pool, man. You got your mama right there. You don't have any strife with your mom because, man, nothing's even happened yet. And then you're going to go through this canal. It's going to crush your head and squish your body, and somebody's going to hit you on the outside. They're going to wrap you up and put you in a room for a couple days or whatever, a day. Nobody seems to like you, but they're kind of feeding you and taking care of you. Then you eventually go home. You can't communicate, and you feel like you need to because you're hungry, and when you're in your mom, you got fed automatically. Birthing is birthing. And birthing doesn't just happen one time in a human body. Birthing happens your whole life. So it may be that at times we need to birth. Society has lost track of freedom in this country. I mean, there's millions and millions of people that understand what freedom is, especially those that don't have it and can't find a way out. But we've got a bunch of, entitled kids that don't have any history in their mind and thus don't know what they're doing. They're hitting themselves in the face with a hammer and complaining that somebody else is doing it. Maybe if you experience something that you dislike, you might be birthing some new concept. So try to find a vector of intent with something that is negative. For a lot of us, we're seeing the world turn back into a tyrannical mess that was the absolute cornerstone of why America was created in the first place, to attempt to create a country that didn't have any tyranny and keep it that way. I can't remember who said it, but one of our founding fathers said, okay, you've got yourself a free country that's a republic if you can keep it. All right, well, that's the name of the game, keeping it, educating each generation into what freedom means. Do we think the programmers want us to be a particular thing? I don't think so. I don't think they care if you become a rock star, a teacher, a writer, a thinker. Do they worry about you dying young? Well, it would seem that there is something in the code that says that there is a time when you're supposed to die and a time when you're not supposed to die. Now, you might say, well, people who have died have come back as adults, let's just say, and they appreciate their life better than they ever did in their previous experience within that particular human vessel. And so you might say, well, that experience was probably just to teach them to how to appreciate their life. Like Ebenezer Scrooge, after he went through his phase through the Christmas past, Christmas future, and Christmas present. But what about an 8-year-old kid who does it? There's not really a bunch of learning going on, unless the objective was for her to leak out what it was like to be up there, which seemed very Westworldy, right? Okay. But there must be something that goes on where you're like, oh gosh, that wasn't supposed to be so lethal, which suggests that the software that might predict the universe, and I don't care if you don't believe in the Matrix at all, especially if you believe in God. Who are these people that greet us, that tell us it's not our time? And no one seems to recognize these people. Sometimes I think I've heard, someone says they see a relative or something. In movies, it's always a relative, usually. It would seem that the if there was ever a situation in a matrix where you would die and be sent back down because it wasn't your time, if that wasn't written into your script, which I can't imagine how that would be the case, then the software is not predicting 100% accuracy, or at least someone's not paying attention to the results that, oh my gosh, if this kid gets in this car today, they're going to die and we're going to have to send them back down. Have you ever had a situation where you should have died, but you didn't? Your car lost control and you spun all around the highway. It looked like you're going to hit everybody on the highway, but you didn't. And you feel like that night when you're sitting in your bed, or especially when your heart's pounding right after it concludes and your car didn't get scratched, your tires took a little bit of damage, but you're fine. You're psychologically definitely awake now. And you feel like you had a guardian angel. You feel like, oh my gosh, someone's looking out for you. You know, friends will tell you stories and you'll reply, someone's looking out for you. What is it? The Occam's razor, which is applied in law all the time. If an explanation to a crime, let's say there's two explanations to a crime, because someone's trying to prove that a crime was committed. They're the victim. They're the plaintiff. And if there's two scenarios that the defendant gives as to why this crime was committed, or the fact that it wasn't a crime, it was a serendipitous chain of events, if one explanation requires no suspension of disbelief to believe, and the other one is predicated on a bunch of conjecture, the law tries to advise the courts to follow the one that doesn't need a bunch of explanation, because that's typically the truth. When you have to fabricate a bunch of stuff around what you're doing, it's typically a lie. See the Big Bang. All right. Why do I mention that right now? The reason I'm mentioning that is that we repeat things all the time. We don't listen to our own voice. It's strange. Like I say all the time, we say, oh, that child's got an old soul. You can tell. My kid has a soul that's probably older than mine. Crazy. I always talk to her like she was an adult after she got out of baby phase. And so when she was 8 years old, we'd take her someplace and she'd sit in the front room talking to adults. Even her mother would call me and tell me this. And they were like, I just had a conversation for an hour with your kid who's 8. And I felt like I just had the best conversation I've had with another adult for the last 10 years of my life. And I was like, well, you know, her and I don't have those kind of conversations. So she's just a little grown up. Whatever she was before, in my opinion, was a very sophisticated human being. And so she just sits down and goes, oh my gosh, finally I got to get out of my little baby costume and I can talk normally. I've told you guys several times, when I was a kid, man, I really enjoyed exploring the world, picking up a bee while it stung my finger, writing on a swing set just to figure out the physics of how it made me feel. Determining my favorite color and favorite number only because someone asked me, which is really funny. But I felt like an adult in a kid's body for quite a while, man. I mean, I don't even know when I felt like the two aligned, because when you're under 18, everyone's treating you like a baby, regardless if you're acting like one or not. As the maturity of the world in first world countries is retarded and slowed down. You know, you're supposed to be living with your parents forever. You're supposed to, you know, what was it? The transformation in college from parents to children in my lifetime went from you're supposed to go to college, focus, get good grades, find an employable career / talent, and get out there and make it happen. Hopefully aligning with your dreams so you don't feel like you're working your entire life. That's how it started off when I was a kid. And then probably in my late teens, when I first got to California, somebody was talking about sending their kid off to a college, and the father was in a fraternity, and he wanted his kid to join a fraternity. That was super important to him, which is a lot of benefits to those clubs, even though they get cliquey and prejudice against others. That's the bummer of it all. But you do have that group of people to work with as you graduate. I've gotten tons of jobs because of other people's fraternity connections. video game things. But then it became, oh, college isn't for learning, it's for an experience. I heard a parent say that once. There was no concern about spending $100,000 for the kid. Oh, they wanted their kid to graduate, but they didn't care if it was in some crazy, Chicano studies or it was engineering. They didn't care. Well, those kids don't do too well when they get out, when they're pre-programmed to be a loser. So funny. A buddy of mine played the intro to Patton the other day, the movie, where Patton opens with a big monologue at the beginning. He's sitting in front of the American flag. And he said a couple interesting things. He said, nobody celebrates. And he goes to something like, in the military, we don't celebrate people who die for their country. He goes, we celebrate those who live for their country. Now, he's not disrespecting, obviously, people who end up dying in it, but he wants people to fight to the last second, not to just go out and be, hamburger for some machine gun somewhere. But we know that you get a trophy now for being a loser in the first world countries. Not sure what Europe does, but over here, if you played Little League or something like that and your team loses, you get a trophy like you won. Every single game. Now, championship game, I understand. Both of you are champions to even be in this court. One of you gets the trophy, one of you gets the big one of you gets the small one, like Bad News Bears. All my 70s references lately. We just rewatched that movie the other day. What a trip, man. So the idea is, if you were to find out this was true, depending on what kind of person you are and how quickly you can scientifically break down the potential reality of what I'm saying, you either are going to be pretty darn compatible with talking to the programmers right away, in my opinion, or you're totally ill-equipped because what you will go to the programmers asking for is potentially unrealistic and not possible within the code constraints that are here. Like someone who's, 80 years old that wants to be 25 all of a sudden. I'm not sure that can be done. Maybe it can be done. Maybe since no one even asks the question, we don't even know. I'm unaware of anyone who's done it. Maybe someone's keeping a big secret. Don't know. But what if you align yourself with what's possible in your reality right now? And believe me, there's outrageous things you can accomplish no matter where you are in life. It is phenomenal. And most of you know it. Most of you may not want to acknowledge it out of envy because you'll look at somebody else and like, that son of a bitch pulled it off and I didn't pull it off. And so maybe you give up, where you should just go, all right, well, Little League, you won this year. Next year, I'm going to pounce you. At the end of Bad News Bears, they don't win at the end because Walter Matthau decides at the last second to give all the kids who haven't played a chance to play. He could have easily won, but he gives it up at the end. And so they get the big trophy. The Yankees get the big trophy, and they get the little one. And the little bratty kid, who's like, I think he's got to be like a little New Yorker kid, even though it looks like he's a pure California kid. He takes the little one, he goes, shove this up your butt or whatever, and he throws it at him. We're going to come back next year and take the big one, is what he says. It's this little tear-jerking little moment, man, where it's like, yeah, that's the way life should be. You don't succeed the first time, try again. But what if you looked at your life and you had sort of a very logical, immediate wins that are just, it's like that golf ball. Hey, let's do another movie analogy. Ready for this? It's Caddyshack. It's the finale. The ball's sitting right on the edge of the cup. It's for the win. The kid's going to get his education paid for, I believe, if he beats the tournament, right? I forgot what he has to do if he loses. But meanwhile, Bill Murray's killing the groundhog, and he's got, I don't know, a ton of TNT buried all around the golf course to try and kill the mole. And he's got, he had what was it, clay? It was C4 or something like that, right? Anyway, he starts blowing up the place, and it's just blowing up the whole golf course, just utterly destroying the place. And the kid, it was Bill Murray's brother who played the referee, and he's staring at the ball, and it's starting to shake, and eventually, poof, it falls in the hole. There's the game, and the kid wins. Well, if you can just think about the balls in your life that are on the edge of the cup and just talk to the programmers and say, look, could you just shake the place a little bit and get that to fall in? help me understand what I got to do to push the ball in. The other thing to think about when thinking about this relationship, if it were real, would be to say what I've told you guys 5 years ago, which is, again, I think the universe looks at us like a business investment. If you buy paints and a canvas and you paint every day, then you can get a Mona Lisa out of yourself at some point. Hopefully you don't have to spend 27 years making a thing, but you can do it. By the way, there's 2 Mona Lisas, and if you put one in your left eye, one in your right eye, and look through a stereoscope, it's in 3D. Nuts. Crazy. You don't buy the guitar, you don't get the solo. You don't write anything, you don't get the greatest novel. So you can increase the odds if you invest in yourself and make yourself available to the wins. It's like the old blonde joke. The girl's like praying every night to God to win the lottery. Oh, Lord, I'm so financially distressed. You know, I'm a good person. I give to everybody. If you could just help me win the lottery, I'll help everybody, and, you know, life will be great. And she prays this every single night for like a year, and eventually God puts his head through her ceiling and goes, buy a ticket, you know? God helps those who help themselves. Probably the most brilliant little statement. What if all these little aphorisms and little sayings, little anecdotal things, analogies or metaphors or whatever, allegories, they're all totally true. But we're sitting here thinking, you know, we're so sophisticated, we don't need to listen to them anymore. When as life progresses, we realize they're all true. What are the ones we use on the show that are always true? The boy who called wolf. The prodigal son. The emperor has no clothes on. Every single one of those things is so true. Prodigal son's a little deeper. But we're not listening. We're not taking in these algorithms of truth because we're so high and mighty and civilized that we've got better ways of communicating things. Maybe we don't. Let me ask you this. Have you ever had a situation where something was gnawing at you? Here's a good one that a lot of adults have run into, even young adults. Your house is a mess. It's just a pigsty. You haven't vacuumed in a long time. You haven't swept in a long time. You haven't done the dishes in a long time. Everything's messed up. Your clothes are dirty. You just brought a bunch of stuff in your apartment or your house and you just never figured out a place to put it. So it's just a pigsty covered in dust. And one day you're like, okay, I'm going to clean this place up. And you spend a whole weekend just getting it all right. Go buy storage containers, dust everything off. And oh my gosh, Monday morning when you wake up, your bed sheets are all perfectly clean and crisp. All your clothes are hung and dry and pressed or whatever you need. That front area, oh, it's so good. It's like one of those hoarding shows came and just cleaned you all up. And for a while, you live in the lap of luxury by your hand. But you let things go back to the way it was because life got busy. Maybe you got good excuses. Maybe you don't have as a regiment in your life to clean. And so it just goes back to the way it is. I'm really describing myself a little bit. My messes are projects, right? So I made the intro. My front room had a green screen and tons of lights everywhere for like 4 months, and then finally had to put it all away. When I build robots or something, I got all my electronics out all over the place in my office, and then I'll clean it all up and put it away. Once you put it away, you don't work on your robot anymore. So it's like, oh God, out of sight, out of mind. I got to figure out the balance here. Sometimes all my clothes are totally clean and my room's all beautiful. And then other times it's like, oh my God, who let the dogs out in this place? The reason why I'm going through this digression with you is to say, let's get our life understood. Let's figure out what's really important. Probably not the hurricane. I mean, if all you want is a hurricane, man, I have to say, and you get everything else dialed in, wow, that's a lot of good stuff going on before you want the car. But I think what we're really looking for is interpersonal things, whether it be with ourselves or with others. You can do both at the same time. And maybe this is just a fun way of talking about how to pray to God and more effectively, if you don't believe in a matrix at all. Now let's talk about the indicators as we wrap up here. A little more time on this stick. It didn't turn out to be too bad. Thought this thing was going to be super heavy. Maybe it is, and I'm just not paying attention. Indicators. Do we have indicators in our life sent by God, sent by the programmers, that are trying to help us make better decisions? It's an interesting thing, and it is actually extremely difficult to provide really good examples. The way I break it down is either on a particular day, let's say I want to go do something, I try to keep abreast of obstacles and non-obstacles. So that if I go in a path, I have to say, like, the couple times I've met, the most amazing women in my life, it was without obstacle. I was doing something, wasn't even thinking about finding anybody. I was usually the predecessor to me finding someone really amazing in my life is life just becomes beautifully synchronous by itself. I'm with myself. I got my buddies and other female friends and stuff, but no one's particularly special. And it's just like I'm totally good in my own skin, man. I'm working hard, creating something cool, making money, whatever. And then somebody says, hey, you want to come to my house? We're having a birthday party. You want to go out to dinner? We're doing a going away birthday party for somebody. Or, hey, come to our church, whatever it is. And you just go, you know what? I normally would say no. You're saying this to yourself. But today I'm going to go do it. When I had my first love, my high school sweetheart, I was heavily entertained at home. I was painting like a crazy man and breaking records with my painting that I'd never done before. I was programming like crazy, creating really elaborate programs in 32K, like a paint application with fonts. I don't know, life was good. I was young, about 15 years old, and my cousin says that the pool was opening up, and it was already June, and or maybe it was July even, and I had barely been to the pool, and it gets warm in Kansas about the end of May. So I skipped a whole month of going to the pool, which is not like me, but life was good. And so finally, I remember being on the phone with him, and I was about to tell him, no, I don't want to go. But he bought some scuba gear. He didn't really want me to be with him. He just wanted to have someone to be with on the ride there and the ride back, which was good for me. So I go there, and I'm a big swimmer at the time. And so I'm down the deep end, just chilling. My city pool was absolutely massive. And I bump into this girl, and I know her. My buddy had dated her like 2 years earlier in junior high. And so we start talking. Boom. It is off to the races, man. I met my kid's mom at a going away party for a buddy of mine. I was sad he was leaving. Wasn't going to miss the party, but I was kind of sad. And there was a girl down at the end of the table just rattling off jokes. She was hilarious. She was cute as hell. And so I was like, God, I got to meet this girl. And little did I know it, her friend had the hots for me and invited me to this outing in Tahoe. And her friend was there. And so I just kept building the relationship with her. Then we went home, and I don't know where she lives. And so finally I had to ask the girl who liked me, could I have your friend's number? And she's like, yeah, don't worry about it. And poof, our first date starts on a Friday night. It doesn't end until Monday morning. We moved in together within a month. And within a year, we were expecting. It happens that way. Now, what didn't happen in either one of those scenarios is something completely outrageous. I didn't fly to the moon and meet a Martian girl there on vacation. Something happened that was very logical. It worked with the environment that I was in, with the people that I had access to, and this amazing thing occurred multiple times. I once went to a church. New girl came in from Germany, exchange student, gorgeous girl. Her and I hit it off. Then I had a birthday party within the same week. She came to my birthday party. I was just starting to draw video games, so I kind of have a little exciting career on the side. I'm only 19 years old. And so I was saying, hey, yeah, I took her through the tour of the artwork and showed her, so that kind of was a little impressive, a little bit of glue there. And we dated for a year until she had to go home. Stuff happens. Now, those three events that I just told you happened to me serendipitously. But what if I had taken inventory because I was way more intelligent than I was back then and actually said, okay, I want to be with somebody. hey, I don't mind being by myself, but I want to be with someone eventually. I want to get married. I want to have kids. And so I start to look for those opportunities or pray for those opportunities. Oh, and because it's very simple to say, I'm driving down the highway, I'd like to see, I don't know, an oil can on the side of the road. Oh, there's an oil can on the side of the road. Why? Because people stop their cars and throw crap out all the time. You can do it. So in those particular scenarios, just to loop back on the indications, those three paths to those three women were absolutely effortless, flawless. But I've had situations at points in my life where I've really tried to premeditate an encounter with somebody. You know, I'm trying to go to a meat market bar and just randomly chill out with my buddy for hours and hours and hours, hoping that some girl will walk in that I think is attractive, who's not dating somebody else, who's also looking for the same thing. Maybe she is the third wheel who doesn't drink that much, and so her and I find ourselves trying to not drink that much but hang out with our friends. Who knows, you know? And those don't work out very well. But there's an instinctual thing with me that those things aren't going to work out real well. Seeking love has typically not provided it for anybody that I know. Typically, everyone's story, when they find their love, it's serendipitous and unexpected. We were at a club called The Edge in Palo Alto, California, which I think turned into the first Apple store in that area. And I think they tore the old building down. If you know better, correct me. But I'm standing there, chilling out. I don't really want to be there. And I look at these three girls over to my left, and they're looking at my buddy's T-shirt because he had some writing on the back. And I tapped him on the back, and I say, those girls are talking about your shirt. So he just turns and walks right over, starts talking to them. My other buddy, who was hanging out with our fourth friend, I'm one of them, he eventually goes over there, and he ends up marrying one of the girls. He's got 2 kids with one of the girls right now, and they're living in heaven. It's great. For him, that, you know, it's not like he wasn't looking for it, but you never know, you're going to run into that person that you're going to spend the rest of your life with until it happens. So just be aware of difficulty in something. Now, if you're in a project, I just outlined in my episode that will have no video, unfortunately. I don't know how the hell I deleted on accident. That you're going through a lot of phases when you build a project. So it's a little bit different. Sometimes they go through real easy too. But we do have, you know, things like UFOs, anomalies, things that seem to bleed through from the other side. What if you're Walt Disney and in your lifetime, from 1901 to 1965, I think, he does a bunch of movies, animated movies. He builds an amusement park. He has plans to build more amusement parks, but he dies before it happens. So he finishes his journey here with some throat cancer, leaves. By the way, I technically made a slightly incorrect statement in one of my last episodes. I said the last day of his life, he was in Anaheim looking at a ride. That was his last day outside the hospital, not the last day of his life. I think he died a couple of days later, something like that. But he chills out at his park because now he doesn't have the constraint anymore. He finished the game. He loves what he created in that body, and there's no rules. Or the rules are about this universe and not about what he can do in the universe. Or let's just say they're well within his means to come back, and he chills out at his park. So he walks up to me and tells me where Bob Gurr is. All right, there's an explanation for how easy it is for him to be there. We know of homes that are haunted, big buildings that are haunted. Now, we typically interpret all that as really negative. There's ghosts, they're trying to scare you. So it turns into that Beetlejuice story arc where the family doesn't want anyone else to live there because they died in a car crash off a little bridge. And they come home and don't even realize they're dead until they read the book of the recently deceased. And then they're kind of like not really into it. They're like, hey, man, why do we got to be dead? This is crazy. And this nutty family moves in, and so they start interacting with the girl who is more open-minded. She can see them. Very interesting. She aligned herself with the matrix so she can see it. Those of you who have more open minds, I'm sure if I were just to take everyone that's ever religiously watched this show for any length of time, and you've had a paranormal experience, I can almost guarantee you that if I gave you a psychological test, just even me talking to you, I'm going to find out that you're very open-minded and intelligent, and that's why you're seeing those things. Could be that you had a parent, a grandparent or someone that raised you with the knowledge of this, like the little, what was it? No, it was Scatman Crothers in The Shining, who said that he and his grandmother would have conversations without ever opening our mouths. My grandmother called it the shine. The little boy had it too. Danny had the shine. Now, Danny got it more organically because, well, actually, his father was probably the catalyst. His father was the caretaker of the Overlook Hotel for perceivably the last 100 years. So he was kind of off in another dimension himself, potentially being reincarnated as the caretaker, because that's just the contract he signed with the devil when he said the magic line, I'd sell my soul just for one goddamn drink. And then Lloyd showed up and took care of him. Contract with the devil. So I would recommend, as a fun exercise for yourself, to take all of the knowledge and perceptions and opinions that you have entertained throughout your life about an existential perception of this reality where you are asking the question, why am I here? And piece it together to almost pull back on the universe from some high altitude and look at it and go, oh my gosh, this is so simple. I don't die. I simply leave the simulation, and I'm welcome to rejoin the simulation, go into a different simulation. I'm welcome to come back as a spirit to chill out. And if someone is open-minded enough, they can see me. And if they can see me, they can hear me. One way or another, speaking inside the mind, appearing in the mind's eye. When I saw Walt Disney at the park, I didn't see him in a way that I thought anyone else could see them. He was just in my mind's eye. Very strange. I think all premonitions are in the mind's eye, aren't they? What if it's nothing more than you in the matrix kind of reaching across the program and seeing something else in memory? If you're not a programmer, but you're a gamer, and for those of you who are neither, hopefully this makes sense to you. But when you play a game like World of Warcraft, it's one of the first massive multiplayer online games. There's two before it that are massive. But every time you play one of those games where there's 1 million people playing the game at the same time, they're actually living in memory in machines, their little bodies. Every frame of animation that they are on is being shipped out to everybody who can see them. And so when they pose a particular way or do a dance or move or sit down or stand up or swing a sword, those frames of that exact frame in their little motion capture is being projected to everybody, but it lives in memory in the computer. Well, you could say that ether is the memory fabric of the universe. And it's like the old program of life. If you've ever seen that, and this would be dating you back to the 70s, but if you're just an enthusiast about computer programming history, maybe I can find a little GIF or something and put it in the video so you guys can see it. But there were these rules, these random dots, or actually a random dot would be plotted on the screen, and then an algorithm refreshes the screen with a rule set, organically morphing that character to change shape and crawl across the screen and to spawn and do all kinds of stuff. And eventually the screen is crawling with these little pixels. It was just an experiment in creating some form of perceivable organic life on the screen. Okay. Maybe that's all ether is, except it's way, way more complicated. It can create stars and planets and humans through interacting with the soul, which is probably a pure feeling instrument. You get emotions, you get love, all the intangibles of this universe, not controlled by the ether specifically, but realized by the ether eventually. Once you perceive the universe in a very easily digestible thing, and you don't have to know all the rules about everything. You use equipment all the time that you completely understand, but you don't understand how it works. I mean, I could say from a toaster all the way up to a cell phone with every single gadget on it possible. You don't know how a rocket actually is built and works and all the intricate things, but you know how a rocket lights up, pushes down, and it goes up in the sky. But you feel comfortable around the objects all the time that you don't completely understand. And you can integrate them into your life without completely understanding how they work. Well, you can perceive the universe pretty easily that way. I'm always telling you guys that I think the universe is made of ether, that everything that is perceived as tangible is nothing more than an orbital cloud of ether that is stuck in a particular collision loop that creates atomic properties that we call atoms, and eventually those things gather up and create other things. Chemistry is nothing more than the undoing or compounding of ethereal winds into various reactions. I don't have to understand where every ethereal particle is in the universe. Maybe if we get a functioning quantum computer with, let's say, 200 qubits, we can start plotting models of ether accurately. Well, now think about it. There's two episodes in Star Trek Next Generation where Moriarty, the nemesis of Dr. Sherlock Holmes, becomes sentient in the first episode, and he wants to leave the holodeck. And of course, they explain to him, look, you can't exist outside the holodeck. You can't. And then he comes back 4 years later in real life, and the actor's aged, although he looked fantastic, and now he's got a loved one the woman is written for him in the storybooks. He wants to leave with her and just go have a life in the universe. And through you got to watch those two episodes. They're fantastic. But they eventually trick him to live in a matrix without his knowledge. So without his knowledge that he will never know he's in the matrix. He will live a full life in the matrix. This little cube of like plastic, like acrylic. It was an amazing thing, and they put him in a little box. He lived in tiny little thing, about half the size of a shoebox, where Moriarty and his wife are going to live. Well, that's science fiction on TV, but with a fully stabilized quantum computer, trust me, it's just some AI writing AI away from existing. When you make video games and you work on an MMO, a massive multiplayer game, you start seeing a funny poetry of the universe, because you start to go, oh my God, are we in a matrix? Because it looks like that's very tangible. We did Ultima Online back in 98. It was a 2D top-down game. Then EverQuest came out and made it 3D. Then Blizzard came out and made it low poly, but much better 3D. And there's all kinds of MMOs now that are damn near photoreal. Okay, fast forward 100 years with Moore's Law. We'll be there. We'll be where you are right now. I'm telling you, I can almost guarantee you, in 200 years, this reality will be a goggle away. I mean, it won't be goggles. It'll be something that talks to your eyes. Maybe something sits on the back of your head, just like in Brainstorm. We will be able to fully record the human experience and play it back to another human being. Guarantee it. Guarantee it. If they don't already have it right now in some laboratory somewhere. But we will have the processor power to make processing power ubiquitous and something we don't even think about anymore. I used to make a joke that in 50 years, I'll have to tell my grandkids about what a progress bar is. When we used to tell a computer to do something, you had to wait, and we had a progress bar. What's a progress bar? Well, it's a bar that, filled up from a 0 to 100%. And your thing was done when the 100% hit there, and they'd be just looking at you like, I don't even get what you're saying, old man. When I tell Photoshop to render a 2-hour movie that I just animated, like a Pixar movie, it's done instantaneously, and we just start watching it real time. It doesn't even have to process a movie file. Any of you have seen the new Unreal engine and the demo by GT Interactive? I think it's still GT Interactive. It's not our reality, but it is, a quantum leap from their previous generation. So we're getting there. So the reason why I mention that is that if you're inclined to poo-poo the notion of a matrix, then I think that if you live, let's say you're 20, I don't think any 20-year-old poo-poos the matrix, but if you're 20 years old and you make it to 100, you live 80 more years, you're going to see it. You're going to see it. I'll be long dead, and you're going to be like, that old man was right. Holy crap. It's nothing profound. I'm not like some genius saying this, but for those of you who aren't engineers, it'll just be more amazing for you. Anyway, I hope you dug this little episode. I don't know about you, but these are some of the ideas that I cannot shake throughout a day. I just think about this kind of stuff, and the question of why are we here? I suppose an atheist could just be a nihilistic and just say, 'cause, man, it's just randomness in the universe. I can digest that for a little while until I start to think, now wait a minute. Regardless of what you think of this universe is, you have to think about where it came from. Even if you think it's an is, there's a container problem with the theory of the universe, meaning if it's infinite, then what contains it? Probably nothing. If it's finite, then what contains it to keep it from diffusing into nothing? Because there's infinitely no boundaries. If there's a boundary, then what's the boundary made out of? If there's a boundary, what's on the other side of the boundary? It ain't turtles all the way down, baby, I think we can keep parsing this until we come up with that Occam's razor explanation. I think it has intent. I really, really do. And I don't think it would be far off from our perceivable loops that we're in today, right? Our perceivable loops today have purpose regardless of how futile they might be. Eating and sleeping has got to be the biggest waste of time the universe has ever imposed on us. Well, eating, I can understand that a little bit better, an ecosystem of supply and demand, converting things into energy and then using that energy, I can get that. It'd be so much better to have that little Iron Man thing in your chest and you're just good. Sleeping, we have a bunch of medical reasons we think we sleep. Well, your body's got to heal, you got to file away your memories and blah, 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 hypothetical. But like I always say, when you're asleep, your body's operating at a massive level of autonomic systems. So you're not exactly, you're not walking around, but come on, do we really, depends on what you do for a living. But if you're an office-bound person, what am I personally exerting myself to do? Unless I go out and hike, do the beach or something, or surf or something like that, my body's not getting tested. And there's a lot of people like that. And so if you sit at a desk and you think for a living, you're a writer, you're whatever, an accountant, but what's the big difference between you doing your job and going to sleep, especially if you dream? Then you're really thinking of stuff. Think about it. When you're awake, this reality is projected to you. Every shadow, every polygon, everything is projected, all the coloring, the texturing, all that stuff's done for you. But when you dream as detailed as this world. Well, that means your brain would be imagineering everything that you experience. Every shadow, every color. If there's a glass door and you can see through it, but there's a little bit of refraction because your brain knows that light refracts through glass, your brain is doing that. Now, if you wake up and I say, okay, do it while you're awake. Draw me this world that you just dreamed. Some of you can, but most of you can't. And none of us could probably do it accurately. But that's what you do when you're asleep. So I tend to think we go someplace else when we sleep, and our bodies are just resting. Someone shakes you and stuff, and there's a noise. You get sucked back in to take care of business because there's a contract between you and your body until it expires. These are fun things to think about for me. I don't know about you, but give me your thoughts. Give me your thoughts about the Matrix. I would be interested to know, if you're willing to say, hopefully there's no problem there, whether or not you are a Matrix person. You don't maybe have all the answers, but you're like, yeah, I'm pretty much convinced. I'm not negating God's existence whatsoever, but there's a layer between us and God, and it's us. It's us at a higher level. Maybe there is no true mezzanine between God and us, but we are doing a lot more for us than we realize, and we create the Matrix. Again, if you become a writer, what's the biggest piece of advice that anyone gives you? What was it in Star Trek? It was Mark Twain telling Jack London, write what you know, man. You can only write what you know. Like I said in the beginning of the episode, you might create new things as you write, but you're conceiving and writing at the same time. You can't write something you can't conceive. So we're in a universe where we exist. Who would be the best engineer of something that already exists? Us. See how simple that gets really quickly? Anyway, give me your thoughts. I want to know. And thank you for all those who have been commenting lately. Season 6 is off to a great start. I am re-rendering the intro ship because I spent about 30 minutes on the first ship because things were getting tight on the schedule. I was never happy with the sphere at the end of the Odyssey, or the Jupiter ship. I always call it the Odyssey. The Jupiter ship. And so now I've modeled that up and grunged it up real nice. And so it's in the house right now, rendering on 3 different computers at 4K. So hopefully real soon I'll have that done. But anyway, if you haven't been to deepthoughtsradio.com, please go and bookmark it just in case we get clipped at the place you typically watch the site or watch the show. That we always get to the next best alternative. The only full-fledged video alternative is BitChute. The only difference is it is 1080p, but there's an app on your phone, so you can still get it through that. Unfortunately, I don't know of any apps that are on your TV natively, but most TVs now have a broadcast feature, so you can take it from your phone and broadcast it to the TV, in case that's how you want to watch it. So we have 2 video, 2 audio, social media, new remastered season 1, a store, and 2 ways to contribute to the movement. I appreciate all of you that do contribute. I haven't given the bumper on contributions. So what typically happens is you get the episodes, some episodes before others. Now I used to have, and it'll happen this season, but I used to have like 5 episodes in the queue. I've already recorded them. They're just sitting on the computer waiting to go out the door. And then I'll edit them together and give it to the Patreon people before other episodes. Now, there's only like 15 people in there right now, so a lot of folks don't take advantage of that feature of getting it early before everyone else. But if you're really addicted to it, you get that. Plus, you can have really easy personal conversations with me on that. Facebook, it's any of you who conversate with me on Facebook, you know, I log in, I talk to all of you, whether you know it or not. If you get a response, I'm responding to everybody, and then I'm away for a week or 2, then I come back and do it again. So I apologize. I'm just really, really busy. But anyway, take care of yourself and someone else, and I will see you in the next Deep Thoughts. Over now.